I'd been working at Lucia's for 3 months when the man in the corner booth called me a thief. The restaurant hummed with its usual Friday night energy. Silverware clinking against porcelain, wine flowing like conversation. The kitchen's controlled chaos bleeding through the swinging doors. I balanced 4 plates along my arms, the heat from the osso buco seeping through the fabric of my shirt as I navigated between tables. Table 12. Always table 12. He sat alone, as he had every Friday for the past month. Dark suit, darker eyes, a face that belonged in Renaissance paintings, all sharp angles and brooding intensity. He never looked at the menu, never smiled at my attempts at small talk, never left less than $100 tip on a $40 meal. Dante Caruso. I'd heard the kitchen staff whisper his name with the kind of reverence usually reserved for saints or disasters. "Your usual, Mr. Caruso," I said, setting the plate before him. Bistecca alla Fiorentina, blood rare, with roasted potatoes and bitter greens. A bottle of Brunello, already breathing, on the table. He didn't acknowledge me, his attention fixed on his phone, thumb scrolling with the mechanical precision of someone reading something that required absolute focus. The candlelight caught the edge of his jaw, the thin white scar that disappeared beneath his collar. I turned to leave. The bracelet. His voice stopped me mid-step. Low, quiet, dangerous in its calmness. "I'm sorry." I turned back, my hand automatically going to my wrist where my grandmother's silver bracelet caught the light. "Where did you get it?" He set his phone down with deliberate care, his gaze finally lifting to mine. Those eyes. Christ, those eyes were black ice. No warmth, no mercy, just cold assessment. "It was my grandmother's." The words came out defensive, sharp. Something in his tone made my spine straighten, made every instinct scream warning. "Your grandmother." He repeated the words like they tasted wrong. "Interesting. Is there a problem with my meal, Mr. Caruso?" "Professional. Keep it professional." My heartbeat kicked against my ribs. He leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking softly. "That bracelet belonged to my mother. It was stolen from our home 6 months ago during a burglary." The restaurant sounds faded. I was suddenly, acutely aware of how quiet our corner had become, how the 2 men at the adjacent table had stopped eating, how the air itself seemed to be holding its breath. "That's impossible." My voice sounded far away. "My grandmother gave this to me before she died. 2 years ago." "Then your grandmother was a thief." He said it simply, factually, the same tone someone might use to comment on the weather. Heat flooded my face, rage and humiliation mixing into something combustible. "How dare you, Gianna?" He cut me off, speaking to someone behind me. "Call Vincent, tell him we found it." I spun around. A woman in a black dress had materialized from somewhere, phone already in her hand. She looked at me with the cold efficiency of someone cataloging evidence. "I'm not a thief." My hands were shaking now. "This is insane. I don't know who you think you are." "I know exactly who I am." Dante stood, and the movement was liquid, controlled, predatory. He was taller than I'd realized, broader, the kind of physical presence that redefined the space around it. "The question is, do you know what you're wearing?" He reached for my wrist. I jerked back, the movement instinctive, but his fingers caught the bracelet's chain. Not grabbing, not violent, just certain. He turned my wrist toward the light, his thumb brushing the inside of my forearm. His touch was warm, too warm for someone so cold. "Here." His other hand traced a minuscule engraving on the underside of the largest charm, a lion's head I'd always thought was purely decorative. "Elsie Leone Caruso. My grandfather had it made for my mother's 25th birthday. 1 of 3. The other 2 are still in our vault." My breath caught. I'd never noticed the engraving, never thought to look. "There are 1,000 bracelets in the world," I said, but my voice wavered. "Similar designs. Not like this." He released my wrist, but his eyes never left mine. "White gold, not silver. Venetian craftsmanship, 1987. The clasp." He gestured. "Hand-forged with a secondary lock mechanism. You'd need to know exactly how to open it or you'd break the chain." I looked down. The clasp my grandmother had shown me how to work. The small trick of pressing 2 points simultaneously while turning. I'd thought she'd been paranoid about losing it. Oh God. "There's been a mistake," I managed. "My grandmother would never." "Your grandmother's name." "What?" "Tell me your grandmother's name." It wasn't a request. "Elena. Elena Russo." The words tumbled out. "She lived in Brooklyn. She was a seamstress. She—" The change in his expression was microscopic but devastating. Something flickered behind those cold eyes. Recognition, rage, something darker than both. "Russo." He practically spat the name. Then, louder, to the woman still hovering with her phone. "Cancel Vincent. Get Marco, now." "Mr. Caruso," I started. He leaned in, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Bergamot and something woodsy, expensive, intoxicating. Close enough that I could see the pulse jumping in his throat, the only sign that he was human beneath all that ice. "Do you have any idea," he said softly, each word precisely placed, "what your family has taken from mine?" "I don't have a family," I whispered. "Just my grandmother, and she's dead." "Fortunata." The word, Italian, musical, utterly foreign in his mouth, made me flinch. Lucky. He'd called me lucky, but it sounded like a curse. "You have 30 seconds to tell me the truth," Dante continued, his voice dropping even lower. "Or I make a phone call that ends with you in a room with no windows answering much harder questions." The threat was real. I could feel it in the way the air had changed, in the way the two men at the next table had shifted their chairs to block the aisle, in the way Gianna had moved to stand between me and the exit. This wasn't about a bracelet. This was something old, something violent, something I'd stumbled into wearing my grandmother's jewelry and my ignorance like armor. "I don't know what you want me to say." My voice cracked. "I'm a waitress. I work doubles to afford my studio apartment. I don't know anything about your mother or your family or—" "Your grandmother worked for the Russos." Dante's jaw tightened. "One of the 5 families. Specifically, she worked for Antonio Russo. May he rot in hell. Doing his books, his dirty work, his—" She was a seamstress. But even as I said it, I remembered. The men who'd come to the apartment sometimes. The way Nonna would send me to my room. The hushed conversations. The money she always seemed to have despite never charging enough for her work. Oh God. Dante saw it. Saw the moment understanding crashed into me. "Welcome to the world, Elena's granddaughter," he said. "Now, ci sei veramente? Who are you really?" The 3 words hung in the air between us, Italian and damning, as every eye in the restaurant turned to watch me shatter. Dante didn't let me leave the restaurant. Not forcefully. He didn't need to. One gesture to Gianna, and suddenly my manager Antonio was at the table, his usually jovial face pale and tight. "Take the rest of the night, Mira," Antonio said, not meeting my eyes. "With pay." "Antonio. Go." But he said it to the floor, to his shoes, anywhere but at me. Then, quieter. "Upstairs. Second office. Don't make him ask twice." The fear in his voice turned my blood cold. I'd never been to the second floor. Lucia's was family-owned. 3 generations of the Castellano family running this corner of Federal Hill like a kingdom of red sauce and whispered secrets. The upstairs was off-limits to staff. Private dining, Antonio had said. Special guests. Now, climbing the narrow staircase with Dante behind me and Gianna ahead, I understood. The special guests were men like Dante Caruso, men who made managers shake and restaurants go quiet. The office wasn't an office at all. It was a study. Leather chairs, dark wood, bookshelves lined with volumes that looked actually read. A desk that probably cost more than my entire year's rent. And sitting behind it, an older man with silver hair and Dante's same unforgiving bone structure. "Uncle," Dante said, "this is Mira Russo." The older man's eyes sharpened. "Russo. Elena's granddaughter." A long silence. The uncle, I didn't know his name, didn't want to know, steepled his fingers, studying me like I was evidence in a trial I didn't know I was attending. "Sit," he finally said. I sat. Dante remained standing, positioned between me and the door. A guard or a warden, I couldn't tell which. "How much did Elena tell you?" the uncle asked. "About what?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. "About the families, the business, the old arrangements." "Nothing." I met his gaze. "She told me nothing. She was a seamstress who made wedding dresses and christening gowns and cooked the books for Antonio Russo's gambling operations," Dante cut in. His voice was closer now. He'd moved, silent as smoke. "And witnessed transactions, and kept records that sent 3 men to prison when she turned state's witness." The room tilted. "What?" "15 years ago," the uncle said, watching me carefully. "Elena Russo testified against her employer in exchange for witness protection and a new identity. The Russo family lost millions. 3 capos went away for 20 years. Antonio himself died in prison. Some say from shame, some say from a shiv made of melted plastic." I couldn't breathe, couldn't process. My grandmother, Nonna, with her careful stitches and her rosary and her obsessive fear of strangers, had been a witness? Against the mob? "You're lying." But I already knew they weren't. "The bracelet wasn't stolen," Dante said quietly. "It was payment. My mother gave it to someone as collateral for a debt. That someone gave it to Antonio Russo. And Elena took it when she ran." "She wouldn't..." "She did." The uncle's voice was almost gentle. Almost. "The question now is, what did she leave you besides jewelry?" "I don't understand." Dante circled the chair, coming to stand in front of me. He crouched, bringing himself to eye level, and the movement was so unexpected, so deliberately non-threatening, that it terrified me more than if he'd loomed. "Elena kept records," he said. "Insurance, in case the government couldn't protect her. Names, dates, transactions, photographs, evidence that could bury half the families in New England." His eyes searched mine. "Where is it?" "I don't know about any records." The words exploded out of me. "She died in her sleep 2 years ago. I cleaned out her apartment. There was nothing but clothes and fabric and..." I stopped. The storage unit. Dante saw it, saw the flicker of memory cross my face. "What?" he demanded. "Nothing, just..." I swallowed. "She had a storage unit, in Cranston, but it's just fabric, boxes of old patterns, nothing." "When did you last check it?" "I haven't. The rent's on autopay from her account. There's enough to cover it for another 5 years. I kept meaning to clean it out, but..." Dante stood abruptly, already pulling out his phone. "Marco. Yeah. I need a location on a storage facility in Cranston." He covered the receiver, looked at me. "Address." I gave it. What choice did I have? While he talked, the uncle continued to study me with those calculating eyes. "You look like her," he said finally. "Elena. Same stubborn mouth, same eyes that pretend they see less than they do." "I'm nothing like her." The words tasted bitter. "Apparently, I didn't even know her. She protected you. That's what she knew how to do." He paused. "The question is whether her protection will hold or whether it dies with her." Is that a threat? It's a reality. He leaned forward. The Russo family doesn't forget. They don't forgive. And if they find out Elena's granddaughter is alive and in Providence, working at a restaurant they probably already have eyes on. He let the sentence hang. They? I looked between him and Dante, who'd finished his call. You're not. Caruso family, Dante said. Different territory. Different business. And very, very old enemies of the Russos. He pocketed his phone. Which means right now, you're either a weapon or a target. Possibly both. I didn't ask for this. My hands were shaking again. I pressed them against my thighs, tried to steady myself. I didn't know. I just wanted to work, to live my life. That life ended the moment you put on that bracelet in public. Dante's voice was flat. In this world, family is debt, legacy is burden, and your grandmother's choices just became yours. So what happens now? I asked. You lock me in a room until I remember something useful? You... Now, the uncle interrupted. You accept protection. From you? I laughed, and it came out slightly hysterical. From the family my grandmother apparently destroyed? From the family that has the most to lose if the Russos get to you first, Dante corrected. He moved to the desk, poured amber liquid from a crystal decanter into 2 glasses, offered me one. I didn't take it. He drank it himself, then the second. Whatever's in that storage unit, it's been sitting there for 2 years, which means either the Russos don't know about it, or they've been waiting. Watching. He set the glasses down with controlled precision. Either way, you've just become very, very visible. Because of you. The accusation hung between us. You're the one who made this public, who... I saved your life tonight. His eyes flashed. The Russos have people everywhere. You think it's coincidence you ended up working at a restaurant the Castellanos own? That you've been serving me, a Caruso, every Friday for a month? He leaned against the desk. You've been watched, Mira. The question is, by whom? And what were they waiting for? The bracelet felt like a shackle around my wrist. Ci sei veramente? Dante asked again, softer this time. Who are you really? And I realized, I had no idea anymore. They drove me home at 2 a.m. Not Dante. Marco, apparently. A mountain of a man with scarred knuckles and a surprisingly gentle way of opening car doors. He didn't speak during the ride, just kept checking the mirrors like he expected ghosts to follow us through Providence's empty streets. Gianna sat in the front passenger seat, still in that black dress, still radiating the cool efficiency of someone born into this life. She'd handed me her card before we left Lucia's. No title, just a name and a phone number embossed in silver. If you see anyone suspicious, she'd said. If you feel watched, if anything at all feels wrong, you call. Immediately. I'd taken the card. What else could I do? My studio apartment had never felt smaller. Marco checked it anyway. Closet, bathroom, fire escape, while Gianna stood in the doorway like a well-dressed sentinel. Locks are shit, Marco grunted. It was the first thing he'd said to me. I'll send someone tomorrow. I can't afford. Already covered. Gianna's voice left no room for argument. Consider it part of the arrangement. What arrangement? I didn't agree to anything. She smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made me understand how women survived in rooms full of dangerous men. You wore the bracelet. You accepted the ride. You gave us the storage unit address. She tilted her head. You've already chosen, Mira. Now you're just catching up to the decision. They left me alone with that truth. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling back to Nonna. Her quiet life, her careful routines, her obsessive warnings about strangers and locked doors and never ever talking about the past. All of it made horrible sense now. She hadn't been paranoid. She'd been hunted. and now I was too. At 4 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The storage unit. Tomorrow. Noon. Come alone or don't come at all. No signature. It didn't need one. I should have called Gianna. Should have followed their rules. Accepted their protection. Stayed in the invisible cage they were building around me. Instead, I stared at the message until dawn bled through my window, turning the shadows into ordinary shapes. The storage facility squatted on the edge of Cranston like a concrete afterthought. Rows of orange doors, numbered locks, gravel lots where seagulls picked through trash. I'd been here once, right after Nonna died, just long enough to confirm the unit existed and autopay was set up. Unit 247, third row, second floor. Dante was already there. He leaned against a black SUV, hands in his pockets, watching me approach with that same unreadable expression. He'd changed. Dark jeans, leather jacket, less corporate predator, and more something else. Something that made my stomach flip in ways that had nothing to do with fear. Alone means alone, I said. Alone means dead. He straightened. The Russos have had surveillance on this place for 6 months. 2 cars, rotating shifts, telephoto lenses. He gestured to a silver sedan 3 rows over. That one arrived 10 minutes ago. Different plates than yesterday. Same driver. My blood went cold. How do you know what was here yesterday? Because I've been watching them watch this place since the night after you started at Lucia's. He said it simply, like it was obvious. You think it was coincidence I showed up? That I ate the same meal, same table, same time every week? You were using me as bait. I was trying to figure out what they wanted. He pushed off the SUV, came closer. What you were. Whether you were ignorant or playing a very deep game. And now? Now I know you're exactly what you appear to be. Something in his voice softened, just barely. Which makes you more dangerous than if you'd been pretending. He had the key. Of course he did. He'd probably already been inside. Already knew what we'd find. But he waited. Let me open the orange door. Let me be the one to step into my grandmother's secrets first. The unit was 10 by 10. Neat. Organized in a way that screamed Elena Russo. Labeled boxes stacked by year, plastic bins protecting fabric from dust and time. A dress form in the corner wearing a half-finished wedding gown that would never be completed. Start with 2009, Dante said from behind me. The year she testified. I found the box. Inside, ledgers. Dozens of them. Nonna's careful handwriting documenting numbers that made no sense to me. Accounts, transfers, names I didn't recognize. Dante photographed each page with methodical precision, his jaw tight. This is enough to reopen investigations, he murmured. Enough to bring RICO charges against anyone still breathing who touched these accounts. He looked up. Your grandmother was meticulous. She made wedding dresses. But my voice broke on the words. She did both. He set the ledger down carefully. People aren't one thing, Mira. She sewed and she witnessed and she survived. That's more than most can say. I found the photographs in a shoebox labeled Fabric Samples 2008. Not fabric. Faces. Men in expensive suits. Shaking hands outside restaurants. Stepping into cars. Embracing at funerals. Some photos were candid, taken from a distance. Others were staged. Formal. The subjects smiling at cameras held by people who'd later disappear. One photograph stopped me. A young man, maybe 25, dark-haired and laughing, his arm around a woman in a white dress. Beautiful. Both of them beautiful in that careless way of people who'd never known real fear. I turned it over. On the back, in Nonna's handwriting, Leone and Maria Caruso, 1986. Your parents, I breathed. Dante took the photo. His fingers trembled. Barely, just enough to notice. 6 months after this, my father was dead. Car bomb meant for his father. My mother. He stopped. Started again. She gave away that bracelet the day they buried him. Said she couldn't bear the weight of it anymore. I'm sorry. Don't be. He slid the photo into his jacket. Sentiment is a luxury people like us can't afford. People like us? I stood, facing him in the cramped space between boxes and ghosts. I'm not like you. I didn't choose this. Neither did I. His eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw past the ice to the rage beneath. The loss. I was 6 when my father died. 12 when the Russos tried to kill my uncle. 16 when I made my first collection run and learned exactly what fear smells like. He stepped closer. You want to know the difference between you and me? I had time to build armor. You're walking around with your heart exposed, thinking ignorance will protect you. Then why are you helping me? The question hung between us. Because, he said finally, you're the key to ending a war that's lasted 30 years. And because... He reached out, his fingers brushing the bracelet still on my wrist. Perché mia madre ti avrebbe protetto. Because my mother would have protected you. The words were Italian, intimate, devastating. Outside, gravel crunched. Car doors slammed. Dante's hand went to the small of his back. A gun, I realized. He carried a gun like other men carried wallets. Time to go, he said. Now. We didn't go back to my apartment. Dante drove, fast, efficient, checking mirrors with the kind of practiced paranoia that told me this wasn't his first time being followed. The silver sedan had peeled out when we emerged from the storage facility, but 2 blocks later a black motorcycle had picked us up. Then a van. They were coordinating, herding us somewhere. They're not trying to hide, I said, watching the motorcycle maintain exactly 3 car lengths behind us. No. Dante's voice was tight. They're making a point. What point? That they can get to you whenever they want. He took a sharp left, then another, weaving through traffic with the kind of precision that came from muscle memory. The question is, why they haven't yet. We ended up at a brownstone in College Hill, all ivy and old money and wrought iron gates that closed behind us with a finality that made my pulse spike. The motorcycle didn't follow. Neither did the van. Where are we? I asked. Neutral ground. Dante killed the engine. The Castellano's place. Antonio's great-uncle owns it. Nobody bleeds here. Old rules. Inside was all dark wood and burgundy wallpaper, the kind of place where deals were made over brandy and cigars. A woman met us in the foyer. Older, elegant, with silver threaded through her black hair and eyes that had seen too much to be shocked by anything. Dante. She kissed both his cheeks. And this must be Elena's girl. Lucia Castellano, Dante said. She owns the restaurant, among other things. Lucia studied me with the same intensity her nephew had shown. You have her eyes. Poor child. Those eyes saw too much even then. She turned to Dante. The others are in the library. Marco's posted outside. Gianna's handling the surveillance feeds. Others? I looked between them. Welcome to the council, Lucia said, not unkindly. Where families who hate each other pretend at civilization long enough to avoid mutually assured destruction. The library was more of a ballroom, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a fireplace large enough to stand in, leather furniture arranged in a careful geometry that spoke of hierarchy and tradition. 4 men sat in various positions of controlled tension. I recognized Dante's uncle. The others were strangers. Until one of them stood. He was younger than the rest, maybe mid-30s, with the kind of sharp-edged handsomeness that came with arrogance and money. Dark eyes, darker hair, a smile that promised violence wrapped in charm. Mira Russo. He said my name like he was tasting it. I'm Tommaso Russo. The room went silent. Dante moved, a subtle shift that put him between Tommaso and me. This is neutral ground, Tommy. Relax, Caruso. Tommaso raised his hands in mock surrender. I'm here to talk, not collect. But his eyes never left mine. Though I have to say, Dante, keeping my cousin locked away like this seems unfriendly. Cousin? The word escaped before I could stop it. Didn't he tell you? Tommaso's smile widened. Antonio Russo was my grandfather. Which makes you and me family, Cugina. Blood before business, as they say. My stomach dropped. I don't know you. But I know you. He circled slowly, ignoring Dante's warning growl. Mira Elena Russo, 26, graduated from Providence College with honors despite working 2 jobs. No criminal record, no debts, no ties to any family business. You've been very, very careful to stay clean. He stopped directly in front of me. Or very, very well protected. She didn't know, Dante said flatly. About Elena, the testimony, any of it. So you say. Tommaso tilted his head. But here's what I see. Elena's granddaughter, wearing stolen Caruso property, working at a Castellano establishment, conveniently discovering her grandmother's insurance policy right when both our families are negotiating a very delicate truce. He leaned closer. That's a lot of coincidences, Cugina. It's the truth. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Maybe? He straightened. Which is why I'm here with an offer instead of a body bag. Dante's uncle spoke from his chair, voice dry as old paper. Let's hear it then. We're all very curious what the Russos consider fair terms these days. Tommaso gestured to me like I was a piece on a chessboard. The girl comes with us. Voluntary placement under Russo family protection. We verify her story, secure the documents, and in exchange... He looked at Dante. The Carusos get their bracelet back. Elena's testimony gets buried, and we all go back to our respective territories without further bloodshed. Absolutely not. Dante's voice could have cut glass. It's not your decision. Tommaso's smile never wavered. It's hers. All eyes turned to me. I'm not going anywhere with you, I said. Even if it means peace? Tommaso asked. Even if refusing starts a war that will burn through Providence like wildfire? People you've served food to, smiled at, laughed with. They'll die because you chose Caruso protection over family blood. Don't. Dante's warning was quiet, lethal. Don't put that on her. Why not? She's the one holding all the cards. Tommaso spread his hands. Those documents? They don't just implicate the Russos. They implicate everyone who did business with us, including... His eyes cut to Dante's uncle. Certain Caruso operations that skirted very close to federal attention in 2009. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. You're bluffing, Dante said. Am I? Tommaso pulled out his phone, swiped, turned the screen to show a photographed ledger page. Nonna's handwriting, clear as day. We've had someone inside that storage facility for months. Did you think you were the only ones watching? My head spun. You already have the documents? Copies. He pocketed the phone. But copies aren't originals. And in court, originals matter. Especially when they're authenticated by the woman who wrote them. He paused. Or her only living heir. You want me to testify? I breathed. Like she did. I want you to not testify against us, Tommaso corrected. I want you safe, protected, and motivated to remember that blood matters more than whatever stories the Carusos are selling you. Dante moved then, fast, controlled, putting himself fully between Tommaso and me. She's not a bargaining chip. She's exactly that. Tommaso met his glare without flinching. And you know it. Otherwise, why are you protecting her? Out of the goodness of your heart? He laughed, sharp and bitter. We all know the Carusos don't have hearts. Just ledgers and long memories. Enough. Lucia Castellano stood, her voice carrying the weight of decades. This is neutral ground, and you're both turning it into a pissing contest. She looked at me. Child, you have a decision to make. But you don't have to make it tonight. Yes, she does. Tommaso's smile faded. Midnight tomorrow. After that, the offer expires, and we handle this traditionally. Is that a threat? Dante's hand moved toward his jacket. It's a deadline. Tommaso headed for the door, pausing at the threshold. Choose wisely, Cugina. Family remembers loyalty, but it also remembers betrayal. The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The walls were closing in, the air too thick. My grandmother's choices crushing me from beyond the grave. Mira. Dante's hand on my arm, warm and steady. Look at me. I looked up. You don't have to do this alone, he said quietly. Whatever you choose, you're not alone. But his eyes told a different story. They said, choose wrong, and we all burn. Dante took me to the roof. Not immediately. First there was arguing, planning, phone calls made in rapid Italian, while I sat in Lucia's library trying to process the impossible choice I'd been handed. But eventually, when the old men had gone and even Gianna had retreated to monitor security feeds, he'd simply said, come on, and led me up 3 flights of narrow stairs to a rooftop garden I didn't know existed. Providence spread below us, city lights competing with stars. The November air bit through my jacket, but the cold felt good, real, something to focus on besides the chaos in my head. My mother planted these. Dante gestured to the garden boxes, dormant now but clearly tended. Rosemary, lavender, things that would bloom come spring. After my father died, she said she needed something that grew instead of just dying. It was the most personal thing he'd said to me. I touched a lavender stem, brittle and gray. What happened to her? Cancer. 10 years ago. He stood at the roof's edge, hands in his pockets. Slow, ugly, the kind that takes everything piece by piece until there's nothing left but morphine dreams and apologies. I'm sorry. Everyone's always sorry. But there was no heat in it, just tired observation. My father died in violence. My mother died in pain. Different endings. Same result. I learned early that love is just another word for vulnerability. Is that why you don't have anyone? The question escaped before I could stop it. He turned and something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. What makes you think I don't? Gianna talks about you like you're a ghost. Marco treats you like a loaded gun. Even your uncle keeps his distance. I wrapped my arms around myself. You eat alone every Friday. Tip like you're apologizing for existing. And the only time I've seen you touch anyone is when you grabbed my wrist to check a bracelet. Silence, long enough that I thought I'd crossed some invisible line. Then, you're observant. I'm a waitress. It's the job. No. He moved closer, the city lights catching in his eyes. It's survival. You've been reading rooms your whole life, figuring out who's dangerous, who's safe, who'll leave a good tip, and who'll make your night hell. He paused. You just didn't know you were reading the wrong things. Meaning? Meaning you noticed I'm alone. You didn't notice that Gianna checks her phone every time I'm more than 10 feet from her, or that Marco sleeps in his car outside my building 3 nights a week, or that my uncle has agents embedded in every business I frequent because he's terrified I'll end up like my father, too trusting, too visible, too dead. The words landed like stones. They're protecting you. They're suffocating me. He turned back to the city. I'm 34 years old and I've never made a decision that wasn't filtered through 5 layers of security and family approval. I can't go to a movie without clearance. Can't date without background checks. Can't breathe without someone monitoring my oxygen levels. Then why stay? I asked. Why not just leave? Leave? He laughed, sharp and humorless. And go where? Do what? I'm a Caruso. That's not a name. It's a brand burned so deep it's in my DNA. I could move to Alaska, change my identity, live in a cabin for 50 years, and the first time someone ran my fingerprints, I'd be right back here. He looked at me. There is no leaving. There's only surviving long enough to maybe change things from the inside. Is that what you're trying to do? Change things? I'm trying not to become my father. The confession came out raw, unguarded. He thought he could bridge the families, make peace, build something better. He died for it. Car bomb outside a restaurant where he was meeting Antonio Russo to discuss a truce. Dante's jaw tightened. Your grandfather's father. The man who probably ordered the hit while smiling over cappuccino. My throat closed. You blame my family. I blame the whole fucking system. He turned to face me fully. The Russos, the Carusos, the Castellanos. We're all drowning in the same generational poison, pretending honor and tradition justify the bodies we stack. Your grandmother understood that. That's why she testified. Why she ran. His voice dropped. Why she never told you the truth. She should have. The anger surprised me, sudden and hot. She should have warned me, prepared me, something other than leaving me to stumble into this wearing her stolen jewelry like an idiot. Would you have believed her? Dante asked quietly. If she'd sat you down at 16 and said, by the way, Nona used to cook books for the mob and witness 3 murders, and the only reason we're alive is because I betrayed everyone I knew. Would you have understood? No, I wouldn't have. I would have thought she was losing her mind, suffering from dementia, spinning stories from old movies. I would have smiled and nodded and forgotten the conversation entirely. She protected you the only way she knew how, Dante continued. By keeping you ignorant. By making you invisible. It worked for 26 years. Until it didn't. Until I saw the bracelet. He stepped closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. Until I made a choice to pull you into the light instead of letting you fade back into shadows. Why? The question had been building since the restaurant. Why not just take the bracelet quietly? Why make a scene? Why bring me to your uncle? Why protect someone who should be your enemy? His hand came up, hesitating inches from my face before he seemed to decide, and brushed a strand of hair behind my ear. The touch was electric, gentle, completely at odds with everything I knew about him. Because, he said softly, you looked at me like I was human. Every Friday for a month, you'd bring my meal and try to make conversation, and you never once looked at me like I was dangerous, like I was a name instead of a person. His thumb traced my cheekbone. You saw me, Mira. Not Dante Caruso, son of a dead hero, heir to a criminal empire, just me. And I haven't been just me in so long I'd forgotten what it felt like. My breath caught. That's not a good reason to derail your life. Probably not. But he didn't move away. Doesn't make it less true. The city hummed below us. Sirens in the distance, the eternal rhythm of a place that never truly slept. Up here, we were suspended between earth and sky, violence and peace, the past and whatever came next. Tommaso will kill you, I whispered. If I choose your protection over his, he'll see it as betrayal, as me siding with the family that destroyed the Russos. Probably. And if I choose him, he'll use me to destroy your family. Those documents, they'll bring down everyone. Yes. So either way, people die. Welcome to our world. His hand dropped, but he didn't step back. The only question is whether you're willing to live in it, or whether you'd rather run like your grandmother did. I thought about Nonna's careful life, her quiet routines, the way she'd built a new existence from the ashes of her old one, never looking back, never explaining, just surviving one day at a time until survival became living. "I'm not running," I heard myself say. Dante's eyes searched mine. "Then what are you doing?" "I don't know yet." The truth felt like freedom. But I'm tired of other people making my choices for me. Nonna, Tommaso, you, everyone. You all think you know what's best, what's safe, what I should do. I met his gaze. Maybe it's time I figure that out for myself. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe. Or fear. "That's a dangerous way to think," he said. I smiled, and it felt like the first real thing I'd done in days. Good. I'm tired of being safe. Dante's phone buzzed at 3 a.m. I was still awake, lying on a guest bed in Lucia's brownstone, staring at ceiling shadows and trying to convince myself I'd made the right choice. Staying, not running. Demanding agency in a world built on inherited debts and blood loyalty. I heard him moving in the hallway, his voice low and urgent through the walls. Then footsteps, a knock on my door. "Get dressed," he said when I opened it. Something's happened. The something was a fire. My apartment building, specifically. Flames visible from blocks away, fire trucks and police cars creating a light show of emergency services. We watched from Dante's SUV, parked far enough away to stay invisible but close enough to see my window. Or where my window used to be before it became a black hole exhaling smoke. "Accelerant," Marco said from the driver's seat. He'd materialized when we left the brownstone, silent and efficient as always. "Gasoline, probably." Poured through the mail slot, ignited with a timer. "How do you know?" I asked. "Because that's how I'd do it." He said it without emotion, just professional assessment. My hands were shaking. Everything I owned, Nonna's photos, my books, the few pieces of jewelry she'd left me besides the bracelet, gone. Turned to ash while I slept in someone else's house, under someone else's protection. "Message received," Dante said quietly. "They know you're not coming to them voluntarily." This wasn't Tommaso. Gianna's voice came through the car's speakers. She was monitoring from somewhere, eyes on surveillance feeds I couldn't see. Too crude. He'd make it look like an accident, gas leak or electrical fire. This is deliberate, visible. "Then who?" I demanded. "Someone who wants both families to know you're vulnerable," Dante said. "Someone who benefits from destabilization." "The Morettis," Marco grunted. "They've been sniffing around the territory disputes. Fire's their signature." "Or someone wants us to think it's the Morettis." Dante's jaw tightened. "Either way, you can't go back there." "I wasn't planning to." The words came out hollow. I'd lived in that studio for 3 years. Small, cramped, mine. Now it was nothing but evidence and ash. Dante's phone buzzed again. He answered, listened, his expression darkening with each second. "Understood. No, keep her there. We're coming." "What?" I asked when he hung up. "Lucia's bakery. Someone left a package." The bakery sat dark and empty, the kind of place that came alive at 4 a.m. when bakers started their day. We entered through the back, past industrial mixers and cooling racks, into a small office where Lucia waited with an expression that could freeze blood. On her desk, a wooden box, maybe 8 inches square, tied with red ribbon. "Don't touch it," Gianna said, appearing from the shadows. She wore tactical gear now, all black, a gun visible on her hip. Marco's sweeping for explosives. "It's not a bomb." Lucia's voice was ice. "Open it." Dante did, carefully, using a pen to lift the lid. Inside, photographs, dozens of them. Me leaving my apartment. Me at the grocery store. Me walking to work. Me sitting in a coffee shop, unaware, vulnerable, documented. And beneath the photos, a single note in elegant script. She's been ours to take whenever we wanted. We've been patient. Our patience is ending. No signature. It didn't need one. How long? I managed. How long have they been watching? Months. Gianna flipped through the photos with clinical precision. These go back to August, before you started at Lucia's, before any of this. Before she wore the bracelet, Dante said slowly. They knew who she was before we did. The room went silent. That's not possible, Lucia said. Elena's identity was sealed. Federal witness protection doesn't leave breadcrumbs. Unless someone inside the program talked. Dante's eyes met mine. Or unless they've been waiting for you to surface since the day Elena died. My stomach dropped. The autopsy. What? Dante turned fully to face me. Nonna's death. They said it was natural causes. Heart failure in her sleep. But they did an autopsy anyway. Said it was standard for anyone without a primary physician. The memory clicked into place. I had to sign paperwork. Provide identification. Confirm her real name for the death certificate. Cazzo. Dante's curse was quiet, lethal. They flagged her death. Traced it back to her protected identity. Found you through the paperwork. 2 years, I whispered. They've known for 2 years and they just watched. They were waiting for you to lead them to the documents, Gianna said, or waiting to see if you'd activate as a player. The Russos don't waste assets. If you didn't know anything, you were worthless. But the moment you put on that bracelet, the moment you became visible in Caruso territory, I became valuable. The words tasted like ash. You became leverage, Dante corrected. Against us, against them, against anyone who wants to use Elena's testimony as a weapon. He closed the box carefully. Whoever sent this wants us to know we're not in control, that they've been 3 moves ahead the whole time. So what do we do? I asked. Lucia answered. We changed the game. She laid it out like a military operation. The documents, Lucia said. We authenticate them publicly. Call a meeting of the families, all of them, not just Caruso and Russo. We put everything on the table and force a reckoning. That's insane, Dante said flatly. You're talking about exposing 30 years of criminal enterprise, federal investigations, RICO charges, everyone goes down. Not if we control the narrative. Lucia's eyes glittered. Elena's testimony put away 3 men. Her documents could put away dozens. But if we present it as a truth and reconciliation, a voluntary house cleaning by the families themselves, we become the heroes, the ones who chose law over legacy. You want to turn witness? I said slowly. All of you. Together. I want to end the cycle. Lucia looked at each of us in turn. I'm 73 years old. I've buried my husband, my son, and more cousins than I can count. I've run legitimate businesses and illegitimate ones, and I can tell you, there's no honor in this life, just debt and death and children who never had a choice. Dante was shaking his head. The old families will never agree. They'd rather burn Providence to the ground than admit weakness. Then let them burn, Lucia said simply. We save who we can, build something new from the ashes. Using Mira as the catalyst. Dante's voice was tight. You want to parade her in front of everyone, make her the face of this reformation. I want to give her agency. Lucia turned to me. You said you were tired of other people making your choices. This is yours to make. We can hide you, protect you, keep you safe and small and irrelevant. Or you can step into the light, claim your grandmother's legacy, and help us end this. The room waited. I thought about Nonna, about her quiet strength, her careful choices, the way she'd survived by becoming invisible. She'd given me that same gift, anonymity, safety, the luxury of ignorance. But she'd also left me the tools to choose differently. If I do this, I said slowly, if I agree to testify, to be the face of this, what happens to the people who've been watching me? The ones who burned my apartment? Dante's smile was sharp, predatory. They learn that you're not prey anymore. I looked at the box of photographs. 2 years of surveillance. 2 years of being studied, catalogued, reduced to a target. When's the meeting? I asked. Lucia's smile matched Dante's. 3 days. Enough time to prepare, not enough for them to organize resistance. 3 days, to become the woman who destroys the world my grandmother died to escape, I said. Or saves the world she died trying to change, Lucia countered. I touched the bracelet on my wrist. Maria Caruso's legacy, Elena Russo's theft, my grandmother's last gift. Okay, I heard myself say, let's end this. The meeting was set for the Biltmore, neutral ground dating back to the 1920s, when Providence families first started carving up territory like a birthday cake. Lucia arranged everything, security, seating, even the menu. She said details mattered when you were asking men to betray everything their fathers taught them. Dante spent 2 days drilling me on what to say, how to present the documents, which questions to answer and which to deflect. We worked in Lucia's library, surrounded by law books and leather and the ghosts of deals made in whiskey and blood. Don't apologize, he said, for the 100th time. Don't explain. Just present the facts and let them draw their own conclusions. What if they conclude they want me dead? Then Marco shoots them. He said it like he was discussing the weather. But it won't come to that. Lucia's reputation buys us safety. Violating hospitality at a Castellano table is signing your own death warrant. I wanted to believe him. The night before the meeting, I couldn't sleep. Found myself on the roof again, in Maria Caruso's garden, touching dormant plants and trying to imagine spring. You should be resting. Dante's voice behind me. Always behind me now, a shadow I'd learned to expect. I keep thinking about what happens after. I didn't turn around. Say this works. Say the families agree to clean house, cooperate with federal investigations, try to build something legitimate. What happens to people like you? People like me? People who were born into this, who didn't choose the life, but learned to survive it. Now I turned. You said you're trying not to become your father. What does that look like if there's no family business to inherit? He moved to stand beside me at the roof's edge. Honestly? I don't know. I've spent my entire life preparing to run the Caruso operations. I know the territory, the players, the profit margins of 17 different enterprises, both legal and otherwise. He paused. But I've never thought about what I'd do if none of that existed. What did you want to be? Before you knew what you'd have to be? The question seemed to surprise him. He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. An architect, he finally said. I liked building things. Still do, actually. I design the renovations for our properties, the legitimate ones. Restaurants, apartment buildings, the community center in Federal Hill. He smiled slightly. My uncle thinks it's a waste of time. Says I should focus on the real business. But you do it anyway. It's the only thing that feels like mine. His voice went soft. Everything else is legacy, obligation, blood. But when I'm designing a space, figuring out how light should move through a room or how to make a building breathe, that's just me. Not Dante Caruso, heir to the empire. Just Dante. I'd never heard him say his own name like that. Like it was something separate from the weight it carried. You could do that, I said. After. Build things instead of protecting them. Maybe. But he sounded doubtful. Or maybe I'm too damaged for ordinary life, too conditioned to see threats in every shadow, read violence in every gesture. He looked at me. You asked why I'm alone. That's why. I can't turn it off. The constant assessment, the awareness that everyone wants something, that trust is just another word for ammunition. You trust Lucia. Lucia's family. That's different. You trust Marco. Gianna. They're paid to protect me. Also different. What about me? The question escaped before I could stop it. Do you trust me? His eyes searched mine. I want to. But you're smart enough to play both sides. Smart enough to realize that whoever controls those documents controls the power. And I've seen smart people make brutal choices when survival's on the line. The words should have hurt. Instead, they felt honest, real. Fair enough, I said. I don't entirely trust you either. That surprised him. No? You're too controlled, too good at saying the right thing while keeping your real thoughts locked away. I turned to face him fully. You tell me about your mother's garden and your architecture dreams, and it all sounds true. But I can't shake the feeling you're still deciding whether I'm an asset or a liability. And if you're both, then you'll choose the option that protects your family, which is what you should do. I paused. I'm just not sure where that leaves me when the choice gets complicated. He stepped closer, close enough that I could see the pulse in his throat, the small scar on his jaw, the way his eyes weren't solid black but dark brown shot through with amber. I made a choice the night I saw that bracelet, he said quietly. I could have taken it quietly, traced it back to you, handled everything behind the scenes. No drama, no exposure, no risk to you or my family. His hand came up, cupping my face with a gentleness that made my breath catch. But I didn't. I made a scene. I pulled you into the light. And every day since, I've been asking myself why. And? My voice came out barely above a whisper. And I think it's because I'm so fucking tired of the shadows. His thumb traced my cheekbone. Of doing the safe thing, the calculated thing, the thing that protects the legacy at the expense of everything else. You walked into my life wearing stolen jewelry and asking if I wanted extra parmesan, and for the first time in years, I felt something besides obligation. What did you feel? Possibility. The word hung between us. Like maybe there was another way to be. Another version of this life that didn't end with me alone in a restaurant every Friday, waiting for the bullet or the betrayal that finally catches up. I should have stepped back. Should have maintained distance, remembered that this was business, survival, strategy. Should have done 1,000 things besides rising on my toes and kissing him, but I did it anyway. His response was immediate. One hand sliding into my hair, the other pulling me closer with a desperation that matched my own. The kiss was nothing like I'd expected. Not controlled or calculated, but raw, hungry, tasting of coffee and something darker. Like he'd been starving and I was sustenance. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. That was a mistake, he said, but he didn't let go. Probably. We're about to walk into a room full of people who want to kill you. I know. And I just gave you leverage. Showed you exactly where I'm vulnerable. Yes. I touched his face, felt the muscle jumping in his jaw. Are you going to take it back? He kissed me again instead of answering, deeper this time, slower, like he was memorizing the taste of something he knew he couldn't keep. My phone buzzed, then his. Then both again, insistent. He pulled back, checked the screen, and every trace of softness vanished from his expression. What? I asked. Tommaso. His voice was flat, dead. He's called an emergency session of the Russo Family Council, 2 hours before our meeting. What does that mean? Dante's eyes met mine, and in them I saw the answer before he spoke it. It means someone told him our plan, someone in Lucia's inner circle. He stepped back, already pulling out his phone, already transforming back into the heir, the strategist, the man who survived by trusting no one. It means we've been betrayed. The Biltmore's ballroom felt like a cathedral built for sin. Vaulted ceilings, crystal chandeliers, walls that had witnessed a century of deals and deaths. I stood in the wings with Gianna while Dante worked the room, all controlled charm and lethal awareness. Tommaso had arrived early, flanked by 6 men in expensive suits that didn't quite hide the shoulder holsters. He'd smiled when he saw me, all teeth and cold promise. "Cugina," he'd said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm so glad you decided to join us after all." Now Lucia was speaking, her voice carrying the weight of decades. "We gather under old laws and older traditions. What is said in this room stays in this room. What is decided here is binding. Does anyone dispute this?" Silence. Agreement through absence of objection. "Good." Lucia gestured to me. "Mira Russo will now present evidence that concerns all families present." I stepped forward. 40 men watched me with varying degrees of suspicion, curiosity, and naked hostility. The documents sat in a leather folder on the table before me. Originals, verified, damning. "My grandmother was Elena Russo," I began. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "Some of you knew her. Some of you wanted her dead. All of you know what she did." Murmurs. Tommaso leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, waiting. "What you don't know is that she kept insurance. Records of transactions, photographs, testimony that goes beyond what she gave to federal prosecutors in 2009. I opened the folder. Everything is here. Names, dates, amounts. 15 years of criminal enterprise across 5 families. So what? One of the older men, Moretti, by his seat placement, spoke up. "Your bitch grandmother tried to bury us once. Now you're going to finish the job from the grave?" Dante moved before I could respond, his voice cutting through the tension. "Rispetto. You will show respect, or you will leave." "Or what, Caruso? You'll shoot me at a Castellano table?" Moretti laughed. "Your father tried to make peace with these bastards and died for it. Now you're protecting a Russo? Have you forgotten who killed him?" "I forget nothing." Dante's voice dropped to something lethal. "Especially not who profits from keeping old wars alive." "Gentlemen," Lucia's voice was steel wrapped in silk. "Let her finish." I swallowed, forced myself to continue. "I'm not here to bury anyone. I'm here to offer a choice." I looked around the room, meeting as many eyes as I could. My grandmother testified because she believed the violence had to end. She was right. How many of you have buried sons? Brothers? How many of you lie awake wondering when the next betrayal comes? More silence, but different now. Thoughtful, heavy. "These documents could destroy all of you," I continued, "or they could be the foundation for something new. Voluntary cooperation with federal investigators. Controlled disclosure. You decide what gets revealed. How? When? You transform from criminals to reformers." "You're talking about surrender," Tommaso said. His smile had faded. "About admitting weakness to the feds." "I'm talking about survival." I turned to face him directly. "Because the alternative is, this evidence goes public, uncontrolled, and you all go down in a RICO sweep that makes 2009 look like a parking ticket. Is that a threat, Cugina?" "It's reality." I held his gaze. "I didn't ask for this legacy, but I have it, and I'm choosing to use it to end the cycle instead of perpetuating it." Tommaso stood slowly, deliberately. Beautiful speech, very moving. He walked toward me, every eye following. "There's just one problem." He pulled out his phone, tapped it, and my voice filled the room. "Can't trust any of them. Dante, Lucia, the whole setup feels like a trap." My blood turned to ice. That was from 3 nights ago. A conversation with Gianna in what I'd thought was a secure room. "Maybe we should take Tommaso's offer. At least with the Russos, I know where I stand." "That's not—" I started. There's more. Tommaso played another clip. Dante's voice this time, quiet and lethal. She's a useful tool. We use her to force the Russo's hand, then handle her quietly. She's too dangerous to leave alive once this is done. The room erupted. That's fabricated. Dante was moving, but Marco and two other men blocked his path. Deepfake, edited. Is it? Tommaso turned to the room. Or is it exactly what we all suspected? The Carusos using this girl to destroy their enemies, then disposing of evidence? He looked at me with something almost like pity. Did you really think they'd let you walk away? That Dante's protection was anything more than a leash? I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The recordings. They sounded real. Perfect. And whether they were or not, damage was done. I could see it in the way the room had shifted, in the way even Lucia's allies were stepping back. Mira. Dante's voice urgent. Don't listen to him. Those are proof, Tommaso finished, that the Carusos orchestrated this entire thing. They found Elena's granddaughter, manipulated her into trusting them, and now they're using her as a weapon. He held out his hand to me. Come with me, now, before they decide you've outlived your usefulness. I looked at Dante, at Lucia, at the men surrounding them, hands moving toward weapons. Tell me he's lying, I said to Dante. Tell me those recordings are fake. They are. But something in his eyes. Tell me you never discussed handling me, that you never strategized about what to do with me after this was over. Silence. Dante. We discussed contingencies, he finally said. Every scenario, including ones where you became compromised, where you'd have to kill me. The words came out flat, dead. I would never. But you discussed it. I was shaking now. You planned for it, just like you've planned everything else. That's protocol. Gianna's voice, sharp. We plan for every outcome. It doesn't mean. It means I'm a variable, I said. An asset to be managed or eliminated based on utility. Tommaso was still standing there, hand outstretched. Family doesn't do that, Cucina. Family protects. Come home. I thought about Nonna. About her choice to run, to testify, to burn her old life and build something new from ash. She'd chosen truth over loyalty, safety over blood. But she'd also chosen isolation, chosen to trust no one, to live in fear, until fear became normalcy. I looked at the documents on the table, at Tommaso's offered hand, at Dante's face, still controlled, but with something desperate flickering behind the ice. No, I said. Tommaso's expression darkened. No? No to all of it. I grabbed the documents. No to your protection. No to Dante's manipulation. No to this entire system that treats people like chess pieces. I backed toward the exit. You want these? You'll have to explain to the FBI why you were willing to kill for them. I ran. Behind me, shouting, chaos, the sound of chairs crashing as men moved. Gianna's voice screaming into her comm, Tommaso's curse in Italian, and Dante calling my name like a prayer or a threat. I couldn't tell which. I didn't stop to find out. I made it 3 blocks before they caught me. Not Tommaso's men. Dante's. Marco materialized from a side street. Gianna cutting off my escape from behind. They didn't grab me, didn't threaten. Just herded me toward a waiting car with the efficiency of people who'd done this 1,000 times. Get in, Marco said, or I carry you, your choice. I got in. Dante was already inside, phone to his ear, voice rapid-fire Italian. He disconnected when I slid across the leather seat, putting maximum distance between us. Those recordings were fabricated, he said immediately. Professionally done, probably by the Morettis. They've been trying to destabilize negotiations for months. But you did discuss contingencies. I clutched the document folder against my chest. You did plan for scenarios where I became a problem. Yes. He didn't lie, didn't soften it. Because that's what I do. What I've been trained to do since I was 16. Assess threats, plan responses, protect the family at any cost. His jaw tightened. It doesn't mean I would've. But you could have. The words cut like glass. That's the point, isn't it? In your world, anyone can become expendable based on circumstances. Love, loyalty, trust. They're all conditional on utility. That's not fair. Isn't it? I turned to face him fully. Tell me honestly, if protecting your family required my death, would you do it? The pause was microscopic but devastating. I don't know, he finally said. 6 months ago, the answer would have been yes without hesitation. Now. He looked away. Now I don't know, and that terrifies me more than if I still had certainty. At least it was honest. Where are we going? I asked. The warehouse district. One of our secure locations. Gianna's voice from the front seat. Tommaso's men are mobilizing. The Morettis saw an opening and grabbed it. The whole city's about to become a war zone. Because I ran. Because everyone wants what you're holding, Dante corrected, nodding at the folder. And now there's no neutral ground, no rules, no Lucia to referee. He pulled out his phone, showed me a text. My uncle's calling in every favor we have. Marco's coordinating with the Castellanos, but it's going to get worse before it gets better. The warehouse was exactly what I expected. Concrete, cameras, enough weapons stored in back rooms to stage a small revolution. They set me up in an office with reinforced walls and a view of absolutely nothing. Stay here, Marco said. Don't open the door for anyone but us. Then I was alone with Dante and the wreckage of whatever we'd been building. He poured himself whiskey, drank it, poured another, offered me one. I took it. We sat in silence, the city's distant chaos filtering through bulletproof glass. My father died believing in peace, Dante said finally. Believing that the families could evolve, that we didn't have to keep killing each other over territory and insults and century-old grudges. He swirled the amber, liquid. I was 6. I remember the funeral, closed casket because there wasn't enough left of him to show. I remember my mother's face, how she looked like she'd been hollowed out from the inside. I didn't interrupt. My uncle took me aside after, he continued. Told me my father had been weak. That sentiment was a luxury that got good men killed. That if I wanted to survive, I needed to learn to think with my head, not my heart. Dante's voice went quiet. So I did. I became exactly what he needed me to be. Cold, strategic, capable of making impossible choices without flinching. But you're not that person, I said. Not entirely. No. He finally looked at me. You keep seeing someone I thought I'd killed off years ago. Someone who designs buildings instead of protection rackets. Someone who might actually want peace instead of just strategic advantage. His smile was bitter. It's destabilizing. Good. I set my glass down. You should be destabilized. This whole system should be. Is that what you're trying to do? Destabilize everything? I don't know what I'm trying to do anymore. The honesty felt like surrender. I thought I wanted to end the cycle, force change, honor my grandmother's sacrifice. But maybe I just wanted to matter, to be something more than a waitress who existed on the margins of other people's stories. You matter. His voice was rough. More than you know. As what? A weapon? A catalyst? A problem to be solved? As someone who makes me want to be better than I am. He moved closer, not touching but close enough that I could feel the heat of him. Someone who reminds me why my father believed peace was possible, even if it cost him everything. Your father was an idealist, I said. Look where it got him. Dead, Dante agreed. But maybe he was right anyway. Maybe some things are worth dying for. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. You have 1 hour to bring the documents to the old train station on Harris Avenue. Come alone. Or we start killing people you served food to. A photograph attached. Antonio, my manager from Lucia's, bound to a chair, blood on his face, terror in his eyes. Cristo. Dante was reading over my shoulder. They grabbed him from the restaurant. Tommaso? Moretti's, Gianna said from the doorway. I hadn't heard her enter. Their signature move, grab civilians, force plays, they want to draw you out. It's working. I was already standing. I'm not letting Antonio die because I wore the wrong bracelet. You go there, you're dead. Dante blocked my path. This is a trap designed to get the documents and eliminate you simultaneously. So what's the alternative? Let them kill him? Let them start working through everyone I've ever smiled at until I cave? We negotiate. There's no time. My voice cracked. 1 hour. And you know they mean it. Silence. Dante's mind working through scenarios, probabilities, acceptable losses. I could see him doing the math. One civilian's life versus the strategic value of the documents versus my survival versus family reputation. Don't, I said quietly. Don't turn this into an equation. Everything's an equation. But his voice was hollow. I looked at the folder, at Nona's careful handwriting documenting sins and secrets, at the weapon that was supposed to change everything. What if we gave them what they want? I asked. The originals? Gianna shook her head. That's leverage, bargaining power. That's paper. I met Dante's eyes. You have copies, right? Digital backups? Of course, but then the originals are symbolic. I picked up the folder. They want me to choose between Antonio's life and this legacy. Fine, I choose Antonio. Mira. I'm going to the train station. I'm giving them the documents. And then I'm walking away from all of this. I headed for the door. You can help me survive the exchange, or you can let me go alone. Your choice. Dante caught my wrist, the same wrist where Maria Caruso's bracelet still gleamed. If I help you, he said slowly, it's not protocol. It's not strategy. It's because I can't watch you walk into that building alone. Why? He pulled me against him, fierce and sudden, his hand in my hair and his breath against my ear. Perché ti amo, idiota. Perché sei l'unica cosa reale che ho avuto in anni. Because I love you, idiot. Because you're the only real thing I've had in years. The words hung between us, confession and condemnation, truth and terror. That's a terrible reason, I whispered. I know. It doesn't change anything. I know that too. But he didn't let go. Outside, the city burned with the consequences of our choices. Inside, we held each other like drowning people, knowing this might be the last moment before everything shattered. 1 hour, Gianna said quietly from the doorway. Dante pulled back, his eyes searching mine. Then we better make it count. The Harris Avenue train station had been abandoned for 20 years. Broken windows, graffiti, the kind of urban decay that swallowed sound and witnesses. Perfect for murder. Dante insisted on coming with me, so did Marco, and Gianna, and 6 other men whose names I didn't know, but whose presence felt like armor and target simultaneously. They said alone, I reminded him as we parked 3 blocks away. They also plan to kill you. Dante checked his weapon with practiced efficiency. Alone means dead. This way, you have a chance. The plan was simple. I'd enter through the front. They'd position throughout the building. Exits, sight lines, overlapping fields of fire. At the first sign of double-cross, Marco would extract me while Dante and the others provided cover. Simple, brutal, likely to get us all killed. Ready? Dante asked. I clutched the folder. No. Good. He touched my face, thumb tracing my cheekbone. Fear keeps you sharp. Overconfidence gets you dead. Is this where you tell me not to die? This is where I tell you I'm getting you out alive. Whatever it takes. His eyes were black fire. I don't make promises lightly, but I'm making this one. I kissed him. Quick, fierce, tasting of whiskey and fear, and something that felt dangerously like hope. Then I walked into the train station alone. The main platform was cavernous, empty, lit by late afternoon sun filtering through broken skylights. My footsteps echoed. Somewhere, water dripped. The air tasted like rust and old concrete. Mira Russo. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Speakers, I realized, hidden throughout the building. Thank you for being predictable. Not Tommaso's voice, not anyone I recognized. I brought the documents, I called out. Let Antonio go. A door opened at the far end of the platform. Antonio stumbled through, hands bound, tape across his mouth. He saw me and started crying, shaking his head frantically. Then I understood. Explosives. Wired to his chest, red numbers counting down. 3 minutes. Cristo. I started forward. Stop. The voice was calm, almost bored. Move and I detonate early. Marco Caruso and his team will also find the train station suddenly much less stable. Semtex in the support columns. Remote detonation. Checkmate. What do you want? I asked. The documents, obviously. Leave them on the ground. Step back. When I have confirmation they're authentic, I'll give you the code to disable Antonio's vest. You'll have 90 seconds, more than enough time if you're quick. And if I refuse? Everyone dies. You, Antonio, the Caruso soldiers playing hero in the shadows. 50 pounds of Semtex makes such a beautiful collapse. I set the folder down. Stepped back. A figure emerged from a side entrance, small, female, familiar. Gianna. My blood turned to ice. Surprised? She smiled, collecting the folder with one gloved hand while keeping the other on a phone. Presumably, the detonator. You shouldn't be. I've been the Moretti's inside source for 2 years. Every Caruso movement, every strategy session, every secret, all delivered gift-wrapped. Dante trusted you, I managed. Dante's naive, like his father. She flipped through the documents, scanning. Always believing in loyalty, honor, the sanctity of family bonds. It's touching. Also fatal. She looked up. These are good. Real. Congratulations. You just gave us enough ammunition to destroy 4 families. 2 minutes on Antonio's vest. The code, I said. In a moment. Gianna pulled out a second phone. First, a call. She dialed. Speaker on. Do you have it? A man's voice. Older, commanding. Confirmed authentic, Mr. Moretti. Excellent. Kill them all. Gianna smiled. With pleasure. The gunshot came from above, the broken skylight. The phone with the detonator exploded from Gianna's hand, spraying plastic and circuits. She screamed, diving for cover. Dante emerged from the shadows, rifle sighted, voice cold as death. Marco, get Antonio, Mira, to me, now. Chaos. More shots. Marco's team engaging Moretti soldiers who'd been hidden throughout the building. Gianna scrambling for a backup detonator. Antonio frozen with terror as Marco sprinted toward him, wire cutters in hand. I ran for Dante. Almost made it. The bullet caught me in the shoulder. White-hot pain, my arm going numb, blood immediately soaking my shirt. I stumbled. Dante caught me, returned fire with one hand while pulling me behind a concrete pillar with the other. Stay down. Antonio. Marco's got him. He was checking my wound, his face terrifyingly calm despite the blood. Through and through, you'll live. 90 seconds on the vest. More gunfire. Someone screaming. The distinct sound of Marco cursing in Italian as he worked on Antonio's wires. 60 seconds. We need to evacuate. Dante's calm crackled. Too many of them were pinned. Get Antonio out. Dante ordered. "We're right behind you." 45 seconds. Marco emerged, half carrying Antonio, the vest clutched in one hand. "Diffused. Go, go, go!" We ran. Behind us, Gianna's voice. "Detonate anyway. Bring it all down." The explosion caught us at the entrance, a wall of heat and sound that turned the world sideways. Dante tackled me, his body covering mine as debris rained down. Concrete dust, rebar, the sick crunch of structural collapse. Then silence, ringing in my ears, pressure in my chest, Dante's weight pressing me into the ground. "Can you move?" His voice, muffled and distant. "Think so." He rolled off carefully, checking me for injuries. My shoulder was screaming, but everything else seemed intact. Around us, the train station was a smoking ruin, one side completely collapsed, fires burning in the debris. "Marco?" Dante called into his comm. "Antonio? Sound off." Static. Then, "We're clear. 3 blocks east. Antonio's shocky but alive." "The others?" Silence. "Marco? The others." "We lost Jimmy and Tony in the initial engagement. The rest made it out." A pause. "Gianna?" Dante looked back at the wreckage. "I don't know." We found her an hour later, pulled from the rubble by fire crews. Alive. Barely. Both legs shattered, internal bleeding, cursing everyone including God as paramedics loaded her into an ambulance. Dante watched without expression as they drove away. "I trusted her with my life," he said quietly. "For 5 years." I touched his hand. He didn't pull away. 3 weeks later. The federal investigation moved faster than anyone expected. The documents, recovered from Gianna's jacket before the paramedics arrived, provided roadmaps to decades of criminal enterprise. RICO charges rolled out like dominoes, arrest warrants, asset seizures, families scrambling to flip on each other for lighter sentences. Tommaso was indicted on 15 counts, the Morettis, 8 families total. Even some Carusos, middle management, mostly, people Dante's uncle had already suspected of corruption. Dante himself was granted immunity in exchange for testimony. So was I. So were 37 others who chose cooperation over prison. The old world burned. Something new would grow from the ashes, eventually. I found Dante in Maria Caruso's rooftop garden. Spring had come early, the lavender budding, rosemary sending up purple flowers, everything that had looked dead in winter proving it had only been dormant. "They're offering witness protection," I said, settling beside him on the bench. "New identity, relocation, the whole package." "Are you taking it?" "I don't know." The truth was, I'd spent 26 years being invisible. The idea of disappearing again held a certain appeal. "What about you?" "My uncle wants me to run the legitimate businesses, hotels, restaurants, the community center. Says I earned it by being the one who chose truth over legacy." He smiled slightly. "He's retiring to Florida. Says he's too old for the new world." "Are you? Too old? For what?" "For peace. For actually building instead of just protecting." He looked at the garden. His mother's legacy, his father's dream. Everything that had survived when so much else had died. I'm 34. No criminal record now that the immunity held. I have an architecture degree I never used and enough capital to start fresh. His eyes met mine. I'm terrified. But maybe that's the point. Maybe. I touched the bracelet. I still wore it, even though it was technically evidence. They'd let me keep it pending final disposition. My grandmother spent 26 years running, living in fear, looking over her shoulder, never telling anyone the truth. She survived, but she never really lived. And you want to live. I want to try. I turned to face him fully. With you, if you want that. What I want, Dante said slowly, is to take you to dinner. A real one, where we're not planning strategies or avoiding bullets. where we talk about architecture and books and what we want our lives to look like. He took my hand. And then I want to design us a house, with a garden, and windows that let in light, and no reinforced walls or safe rooms or contingency plans. That sounds terrifying. Absolutely. He kissed me, soft and sure. But I'm done being afraid. Done letting other people's violence dictate my choices. What if it doesn't work? I whispered. What if we're too damaged, too conditioned by survival to actually build something normal? Then we'll be damaged together. His thumb traced patterns on my wrist. And we'll build something extraordinary instead of normal. But either way, his voice went fierce. We build. We don't inherit or protect or survive. We create something that's ours. Below us, Providence stretched toward the harbor, the city that had witnessed so much blood and betrayal, so many cycles of violence and revenge, but also survival, also resistance, also people who'd chosen, again and again, to hope for something better. Okay, I said, let's build. Dante pulled me closer, his heart beating steady against mine. Around us, Maria's garden bloomed, lavender and rosemary and the sweet smell of things that refused to die. In my pocket, my phone buzzed. A message from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Trial dates, testimony schedules, the administrative machinery of justice grinding into motion. I'd answer it later. Right now, I was here. Alive, choosing, building. Not running from the past, but transforming it into foundation. Not a victim of legacy, but an architect of something new. Dante's hand in mine felt like a promise, or maybe just a beginning. Either way, it felt like enough.